Welcome back to K&L Farms. I'm Ken. I hope this video finds you well. I have a little story for you, and I've got a canning jar in front of me. We'll go over that in just a minute. And towards the end of the video, I themed a product, and I've got a safety concern, something I did, and everything I put on the table, and the migration on long-term food storage. We're going to go over here pretty quick. But I got a story for you before we get to that. And the story goes, I spent all of my life, except when I was in the service, all of my life in a very rural area. The town I live in has like 600 people that live in the town, and I've targeted that all the time. But I went to visit my daughter. At the time, my daughter had 2 little kids. Me and my wife had to go to town for some reason. Town means major city, major city. A lot of people, a lot of different lifestyle, totally. And I thought when I got there, I'd stepped off on the moon because it was so strange to me. But in any case, I go to visit my daughter. We're having a good time, and my wife and I, empty nesters now, we actually try to consume food or our dinner between 5 and 6. So I'm doing my visiting and everything, and I'm thinking about 4:30, me or the wife gets up and starts cooking some food. We're going to cook some food. So it doesn't matter what the food is, but so it's 4:30 at my daughter's house. 4:30 comes along. I'm pretty hungry. I could eat, and 4:30 comes along, and 5 o'clock clicks off, and I finally asked my daughter, my youngest daughter. I said, hey, what are we going to do for food? Because I'm thinking we should have been cooking at 4:30. She walks over to the refrigerator and she grabs a whole bunch of menus for restaurants off the refrigerator. And I think, well, that's odd, because I was thinking we'll just go to the store and save some money, and because I'm cheap. Remember, I'm cheap. So save some money, and I'll cook. If I need to cook, I can cook. After 43 years of marriage, I finally realized how I can boil water. But in any case, so she goes and she says, she's got several menus there. What would you like to eat? And I said, well, I'm not 100% sure, because, I'm used to cooking my own food. Okay, so she says, well, pick something. And I thought, well, okay. And it was Panda Express. I like Panda Express, which is funny to me, but anyway. So I pick up Panda Express, and I thought, well, okay, we're going to order food, and one of us is going to have to drive to the restaurant and pick up the food. She said, well, no, that's not how we do it. We just Uber Eats. And when she said Uber Eats, it's like, I don't know, is there a roach coach going to show up at the Outback, or what does Uber Eats mean? So anyway, she orders Uber Eats, and I'll get to the point after this, but and the next thing I know, the doorbell rings and somebody brings the food. And the point of this story is before COVID, if I was saying I'm doing long-term food storage, everybody kind of looked at me like, well, that guy's crazy. That guy's just a... Okay, so it's a doomsday prepper. Everybody would go with, you're just a doomsday prepper before COVID. COVID happened, restaurants shut down, restrooms shut down. You couldn't go to town and buy Uber Eats or any of that because restaurants were all shut down. Couldn't even go to town and go to the restroom because the restrooms were all shut down. So society at that point started assuming that maybe we weren't all crazy, and that maybe they've got something going on there. So and my daughter, my youngest daughter, she used to say, well, why do you have 6 months worth of food? Why do you have months worth of food after COVID? Because when COVID came in the state I live in, we couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't go anywhere to eat. And me and my wife were just sitting at home having a good day. And you could leave it in the comments, and still puzzled by it. the question for you is, how come everybody has to buy toilet paper? I mean, the rule of threes is, water, shelter, and food. Toilet paper wasn't a concern. I mean, if you have a problem, I don't know if I remember my grandfather ever saying it, but way back, the reason they got the Sears catalog is to take care of toilet paper. Toilet paper wasn't a concern. You got to be relying on the rule of threes in, shelter, food, and water. Toilet paper wasn't a big deal, but down there in where she lived at, there was lines around the big box stores trying to find toilet paper, and I'm still puzzled by that, but maybe you can answer it down below, because toilet paper still isn't a big concern. But in any case, I was going to bring it to your attention that also, so after COVID, and then the people down there in North Carolina and Florida recently, they're kind of going to all the neighbors that haven't bought any food or don't have any long-term food storage. They're kind of accepting the terms of maybe we could put up, a week or 2 weeks or a few days of food preparation. And I'm going to go back now, and I've got to correct. I did a video, and I think the last video I put up was themed. I think it was themed something around, I lived 7 days without power off grid. And I didn't mention this fact, and it's an important fact. I'm going to move that over here because that's a prop for later on. Okay, and I'm going to put this up here. Thing I didn't mention is, now I don't know, and you could set the priority level of this, but when I did that, I had a basic first aid kit. This is an expanded first aid kit. And I had a trauma kit in the truck. And the reason I didn't mention that is this always stays in my truck. And you know by now that I'm on the volunteer fire department, and if I come across some situation, not catastrophic, but a car accident or that type of thing, I just get out this first aid kit and the trauma kit. And yes, before you ask the question, I have went back to my trauma kit and verified that the tourniquet in this pack is not counterfeit. It's a real tourniquet. And the other thing is in that is just last night I had to go back and get recertified for my first aid. First responder first aid. I am not an EMT. My daughter, that younger daughter I was talking about, is an EMT. I am not an EMT, but I can still perform some services to try and minimize whatever accident happens. So that was one thing. The other thing I said on the video was bottled water. And if you're doing long-term or, for a tragic situation, a bottled water is better than not having any. So if you have one, or if you have a case of this bottled water, that is better than nothing. But in my case, I've expanded. And in all of what you're going to see, I've expanded, and it's been migration between the start to the finish. And I don't even know if I go with the finish, because the finish, by the end of the video, you're going to see becomes expensive. But in any case, bottled water, case of bottled water is a start. And I use this container because, well, you don't have to purchase this container. Any container that carries 5 gallons in it, because a 5-gallon container, say you have 4 of them, you're better off, I think you're better off with stored water, fresh water, potable water, than you are with this, because you have to consume, or it's actually said, you should consume 4 of these bottled waters a day. Time you get a case, you got a family of 4, a case goes fairly quickly. And in that same area that you're storing a case of water, you could have 4 of these. You could have 20 gallons of water. Water is always your first priority when you're trying to survive in a grid down situation. Okay, so let's get that off the table. Okay, so I was going to start this video because I'm most familiar with this canning jar, and I'll explain this canning jar to you. Canning jar and what it was, and I thought it was easiest and possibly the cheapest. And so these are tomatoes, just a bunch of tomatoes in a canning jar. I did in 23. By now you should know that I'm on the volunteer fire department. The volunteer fire department has a fundraiser, Burger Shack, and we make burgers and hot dogs and chili dogs and for fundraiser. And on this year, 23, in 23, we said, okay, there's 2 cases extra of tomatoes. You always have leftover. You have a garden, there's leftover. And so I just stuffed them in a jar, did my thing, and so I thought this was the beginning because in my case, there's 4 generations. It would be my grandmother, my mother, me, and a granddaughter. So there's 4 generations that have done this. So I own the jars. I don't own the lids because I don't reuse the lids. I never reuse the lids. And I thought, well, this is the most affordable. And then I got thinking, well, how did we get to this point? So how do we get to this point? And I'll show you. And then I'm going to change to a different subject. But I thought, well, I'll start out the video with this because it's the most affordable, because I'm going to try and move from the most affordable when I started canning, or I'm sorry, when I started long-term food preparation. I had 2 kids, didn't have a lot of money, but I knew as a husband that I needed to take the responsibility that if things go bad, that we have food and water and first aid to sustain our life for some period of time. So I went with this. I thought in my head, well, I'll just theme this as the first product. And then I thought, well, let's just set that aside for a minute. I thought to myself, well, how did I get the jar? Well, the jar was a cost. And then I went to, I'll get it in just a minute. Okay, I went to, okay, well, now you need, this is a crock pot. I'm sorry. This is a pressure cooker from 3 generations ago. This pressure cooker. And then I went to, well, then you need a funnel, and then you need a magnet and a measuring stick. Then you need a lid to go on top. Then you need some way, and I thought, well, if you're just starting out, time you get all this purchased to make a jar, you got considerable amount of money in it. So it's not the cheapest. It just was the cheapest for me, and maybe even go with it's cheapest for me in my generation. But let's put that back in there, and then I'll explain why I believe this jar is the cheapest. Okay, so had all that's purchased. In fact, that was handed down from 2 generations ago. So I have all that product. All I got to do is buy the lid. So they said, well, we have an extra case of tomatoes and garden and cucumbers, whatever, lettuce, or I'm sorry, cabbage, all that type of thing. Stuff it in a jar. Go to, in my case, it's blue. It's a blue canning book. Go to the blue canning book. And then that was for, I have my version of that, but my grandmother had the same book. Go to the book, it tells you what to do that. But if you're just starting out, that is not the cheapest way to do that. And I'll show you in just a minute how I got started, excluding this, because this is how I actually got started. Because this is old school stuff. I'm going to put it in the pressure cooker for right now. So then I go to, well, I mean, I think the cheapest thing is actually a can. Go to get a can. Now I brought out baked beans because I like baked beans, and this is a good example. I'm hoping you can actually see the scale on the camera. I like baked beans, but you can do whatever you do. Just go get a can beans or soups or whatever, canned product is probably the cheapest. Now in my migration between, when I got started to where I am now, was not, because I'm past this, and I started out with canning products. But I don't know if you can see the scale, and this is actually a can of split pea ham soup. This is the can you purchase now. This is the can I actually purchased. That's the can. That's what I used to purchase. Give you an idea of inflation. This is the can I used to purchase. This is the can I purchase now. But the cheapest, easiest way to start long-term food for your family is just go somewhere, and I'm not ashamed to say, I go to the dollar store. Go to the dollar store, go anywhere you can. If you're buying a can of soup of any kind that you enjoy consuming, instead of buying one, if you can afford it, buy 4. Take 3 of those, put them on the shelf, consume 1, and then start consuming the other 3. Consume those, and then when you go back to the store, maybe this week or this month when you go back, you buy one of these. You bought 4 total. You consumed the 4 total. You got to go back. Now you consume 5, or purchase 5. And once you purchase 5, take one of those cans, put it on the shelf, and just leave it. Don't do anything. And then next time you go back, you've consumed 4. You have 1 stash. Now you buy another can. When you buy 5, take 5, put 1 on the shelf for your preps, consume 4. Next time you go back, from this point on, your number when you go to the store is whatever soup you like consuming. I like this one. You buy 5, consume 4, put 1 on the shelf. Bad things come and happen. You've got some product on the shelf. Okay, so that was the next thing I actually did. And I found that this was cheaper than that. And we're going to move to more expensive. Okay. Okay, so moving to more expensive. And I think it's more labor intensive. But it's borderline with the can of soup on your products. So I went to, from there I went to Mylar Bags. Now Mylar Bags has less buy-in than canned products, and it's actually as cheap probably as you can do for soup. And because the product you buy, you can buy in bulk. And this product is split peas that I put up in 22. And I buy Mylar bags. The thing with Mylar bags, when you get them, these are 1 gallon Mylar bags. Now I've done Mylar bags either in 1 gallon or 5 gallon. I don't have an example of a 5 gallon, but you can rationalize that you buy 50 pounds of rice, or 50 pounds of flour, 50 pounds of sugar from the box store. That's cheaper. And what I did in this case is I bought 50 pounds and I put them in 1 gallon containers. And this one, actually, I put the oxygen sealer, and the oxygen sealer usually comes with the Mylar bag, and the oxygen sealer usually comes in the size. So if I buy 5 gallon bags, then the oxygen sealer is appropriate for the 5 gallon bags. If I do 1 gallon bags, oxygen sealer, now make sure when you purchase it that you're getting the oxygen sealer and in fact you're getting the bags at the same time. So they're sized correctly. So this bag, empty bag, we had consumed this product, and we can probably consume this product. This product's, I didn't realize it, but it's ripped, so this bag's not any good. But in any case, this was probably consumed during COVID, because me and my wife had enough food, we didn't have to leave for months at a time. But what I did was I cut the top off short, And then I was assuming, because I have several of these bags that have already been used, and this bag was flour, and it was done in 20. But it's been consumed. I kept the bag. You just have to buy more. 1 gallon bag. I have an example of that too here in just a minute. 1 gallon bags of oxygen sealer. Put it in. And if you'd like to actually see me do this, how I did this, leave in the comments, and I'll try and make a video on how I did 1 gallon bags. But this is the next step that I did. And I'll try and find here just a minute, because I'm pretty sure I brought out the oxygen for oxygen consumers for this, but I think they're actually, I don't know if I actually put them up or not. But anyway, moving on, this is the next thing I did. Now the next thing that I did, let me put that back in my staging area. Okay, so then I went to, in my migration, I went to a sealed container, and we have a vacuum sealer, and I just put a product in here. I don't know how, see, I didn't date it or actually say what I think it is. I think it's potatoes. Just take a vacuum seal bag. If you have a vacuum sealer, you're trying to be cheap, just like I am, and you put vacuum, whatever product you want, rice or potatoes, this might be scalloped potatoes. Put it in there, vacuum seal it. This is the next step. If you're just doing a small product, okay? And that small product in this container would be something around this home style mashed potatoes. It's a freeze-dried mashed potatoes. Punch a hole in it, throw it in the bag, and then vacuum seal it. Okay, so that was next I did. Okay, then I went to next product that we're gonna go over as we go up the scale. This is a one meal, this is chicken, pasta alfredo chicken, and just go to, I think this one actually came from REI, which is expensive. Of course we're going up in expense, but I don't really like Mountain House, or this is Ready Wise, and it's only got one product in it. And I actually like an MRE. Now remember, we're getting expensive, kids are gone, and I like an MRE because an MRE has several things in the package. Silverware usually have salt and pepper, usually has some sweets in there, and it usually has some silverware in it. So I like an MRE over a Mountain House single meal, but any of these products I could consume for a day and it would be good. Okay, so we got those two. Let's just set those two right there. And then we're gonna go to more expensive. More expensive, this is just corn. This gets more expensive. I had a insight on this years ago, but I've never done it. And what it was is, I think they call them Mormon stores. If you want to do this for a reasonable rate, the cheapest you're going to find is in a Mormon store, and they have these containers just like this one, and it's the cheapest probably you're going to find around. But that's the next step I went to, is just a can, and I have several of these cans in different products. Okay, so let's go to the next one, and I got a story around the next one. Okay, so next one, and it's getting gradually easier. Canned food is, in a glass jar is more labor intensive, and we're going down the easy scale, and as your budget actually dictates. And I've seen another creator said, well, just go and get, I'm not going to show you the brand because the brand to me doesn't really matter, but you've seen these before. Go and get these. Go and get these, and I think he said, get 3 months for your family. And when I heard that, I don't know why I did, but I instantly went to, okay, so I'm going to shut the power off because I can't afford to buy 3 months of this the same time I have power going, and the power was the first thing that came to my mind. Shut the power off for 3 months so I can afford to go get 6 months of this stuff. And then I went to, well, how am I going to cook this stuff if the power's off? So anyway, this is terribly expensive. I'm not promoting you do this, it's just how I moved around. Okay, so that was another thing This is probably the easiest, and I don't know how many days. This is actually 4. And I'll tell you another story. I'm thinking this is probably 20 days worth. And then I went to, well, I bought the first one. I actually saved up and bought the first one. And then I went to, well, what's my wife going to do? So I bought another one as money prevailed. And so we have some of these. But I'd rather do the other things first. This is more expensive after we were done raising kids. Okay, so that's another thing. Okay, so now the safety tip a little bit. Okay, so, and I think I promoted this. This is a heat source, and I've had it for probably a year. Just a diesel heater. Mine's got a thermostat on the end. Do what you want to do. And the problem I had with this is, so I was running it as a temporary heater for a little bit. And this is the exhaust portion of it, not air intake, but this is the exhaust. Plugged the exhaust in, had it set, and I was just for a temp because I haven't actually hooked that up to anything because for me it's kind of portable. And so I got the heat exhaust on it. Heat exhaust, and I set the whole unit on these 4x4s so that the exhaust pipe could be vented outside, creates carbon monoxide. See that block right there? I had it set on this block. So in my case, what I actually did was, and this was not in contact with the exhaust, but this exhaust created enough heat that it charred this end, and I think if this wouldn't have been a piece of pressure treat, it would have caught that on fire, and I didn't want to burn the house down. So anyway, that's kind of what I had going on today on my different situations on how I migrated from when I was raising kids, didn't have any money, to now I have a little bit of money, and I did some food preps.